Okay, you guys, so this is the second section of Article 1. My last video, I read Section 1 of Article 1. Okay, so now this is Article 1, Section 102. With the same intensity, we got our Black's Law Dictionary to our left. And we got Google in the background. We got a couple tabs open, just in case we got to go off on a tangent. Okay. All right, so it says scope of article. Right, so what is scope? Right, so when Congress says this, because they say this a lot, they pretty much are saying like, hey, what does this apply to? Okay, when you're talking about Article 1, or when you're talking about just in general of the Uniform Commercial Code, because that's what we're on general provisions, right? This is the section we're at, we're at number 2, right? So the scope of article. Okay, so it says this article. What article? Article 1, not 2, 3, 4, 5, but Article 1 applies to a transaction to the extent that it is governed by another article of the Uniform Commercial Code. Okay, so this article applies to a transaction to the extent, right? So what's a transaction, right? Let's look that up. What's a transaction? Right? So a transaction means an action. Right? So a transaction means an action or set of actions related to the conduct of business, consumer affairs, or commercial affairs between two or more persons, including any of the following types of conduct, right? So a transaction is an action or set of actions related to the conduct of business, right? So it's going to get down here what business is, but just see right here. So action or set of actions related to the conduct of business, dealing with consumer commercial affairs between two or more persons. So some action you're doing between you and another person, and we'll look up person in a little bit, but person. And then this is the type of conduct you're doing when you're entering a transaction, right? So you're the sale, lease, exchange, licensing, or other disposition of 1, personal property. That's transacting business. That's an action when you're selling, leasing, exchanging, licensing, or disposing of personal property. Okay? And when we read the other articles, later on in this article, it's going to talk about a United States Code dealing with commercial transactions. And that's going to bring some light on more on this too. All right. So personal property, including goods and intangibles. Right. So you're performing some type of action, right? Some type of conduct between you and another person, which is a sale, a lease, exchange, other disposition of 1, personal property. Right. So let's highlight this because it's how you got to read it. Right. So this is the type of conduct you're doing. You're selling personal property, including goods and intangibles. You're leasing personal property, including goods and services. You're exchanging personal property, including goods and services. And you're licensing or disposing of personal property, including goods and intangibles. Right? So then now let's go to number 2. So the sale, lease, exchange, licensing, or other disposition of 2, services. Right? So but to be in a transaction, you're performing some type of action that's dealing with a consumer affair, business affair between 2 or more persons. And you're selling, leasing, exchanging, licensing, or dispositioning of services, right? Or any combination thereof. Either you're selling or licensing, either you're leasing or exchanging, or you're disposing of or leasing, or disposing of or exchanging or selling, right? So on and so forth. All right, so that's the type of conduct you can have when you're dealing in a transaction, right? Okay, so now B, the sale, lease, exchange, or other disposition of an interest in real property or any combination thereof. Right, so that's a transaction. Okay. So this article applies to those type of transactions that we just talked about, to the extent that it is governed by another article of the Uniform Commercial Code. So if you have a security agreement, that applies or governed by Article 9. So that means Article 1 applies too, right? Why does it apply? Because it says it right here. Generally, if you're in a transaction that dealt with disposing of property or leasing it or licensing it or selling it or purchasing it, right, with another person, that you are engaged in a transaction, subject to the Uniform Commercial Code, and so that means this article applies. Okay.